Amnesty International is dismayed by reports that the majority of grade 4 learners in South Africa cannot read for meaning in any of the official languages in the country. This follows revelations from the latest Progress in International Reading Literacy study. They are also concerned about the latest jobless numbers, which are hitting young people the most. Joining us to weigh in on this is Mienke Steytler from Amnesty International South Africa. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. So you are of the belief that the youth are bearing the brunt of government's failures. How so?
Yes, sadly, we do feel that, and we feel that it has to stop. You know, this new reading study, or not new reading study, but the new results of a reading study that happens every 5 years globally, showed that like 81% of grade 4 students, that's learners who are turning, usually in that year they turn 10 years old, they cannot read for meaning in any language. And, you know, this is not a new thing. We've seen this before, but there was some improvement in recent years. And then this year, it's just looking really concerning again. And why we're connecting it is that, you know, your ability to get an education can really give you a chance at a potential, life with opportunities. Stats SA, and as you mentioned in your intro, also released the quarterly labor force survey this week, and it showed that over 36% of 15 to 24-year-olds are not in education, employment, or training, and this is just really shocking. And so for us, these things go together. This must be a wake-up call to government. It must be a wake-up call to the Department of Basic Education in particular, that has to be rectified.
The report also speaks of an incoherent policy on the part of the department. However, how much responsibility do parents have to bear in all of this, right? Because also, it starts at home, or there should be a lot of support from a home level.
Yes, of course, parents should be involved. Or one could also say when one means parents, one means caregivers as well, not necessarily the biological parent, but, you know, of course they play a role, and the school and the parent, one could argue, is in a partnership, right? But we must also keep into, take into our minds that due to the absolute scourge that was apartheid, and even, further back than that, there are parents who could not access education themselves, who cannot necessarily read themselves, but their children have this opportunity now. And if the schools and if the system was serving these children properly, then one would imagine that at least, not 81% of them won't be able to read for meaning. One would almost see that switched over. One would rather say, well, 19% can't read for meaning in any language. And that would be something that would be more normal to see. But to see over 80% of grade 4 learners not being able to read for meaning, that points at a bigger issue than only what's happening at home, right? That points to a systemic issue. That points to a system that is not working. And that is a wake-up call for the Department of Basic Education.
So essentially, systematically, there hasn't been a change in the education system since apartheid days?
There has been a change. There have been actually a number of changes, and we do worry that maybe one should look at curriculum, but also just at the resourcing of schools, and also in the way that students that might be struggling are supported. That's very important, and we do acknowledge, of course, that there are lots of structural issues that still exist because of the oppression that happened, in particular during the apartheid years, through laws, right? And we also know that COVID-19 had an effect, but a lot of these issues existed before COVID-19, and a lot of these issues are something that even the Constitutional Court has said can be immediately sorted out. The right to basic education is immediately realizable. And the way that the DBE can do this is to have concrete plans with budgets, with timelines. And they may have these, but we've seen before as well that deadlines are moved, if accountability is evaded, and maybe they hope that these students will grow up and then move out of their jurisdiction as such, or out of their responsibility. But the impact is really the future of South Africa, because as we've seen, the youth unemployment rate is extremely high. And the higher your education is, the higher you've been able to go in being educated, say to college level or to even university level, the lower your probability of being unemployed.
Is it really
and
also,
you have to do that, right?
The lower your probability of being unemployed, but is it really, especially in a country like South Africa? I know a lot, or not even a lot, let me say rather, I know some sectors of society will downplay that, well, yes, even though you've got a number of people who have graduated and they're not employed, the numbers are not so high, but they're still there and they still face those frustrations. So is it really that in a country like South Africa, even though you do get an education, your chances of being employed are higher, number one, and also can we draw parallels between that lack of that change in the system to what we are seeing, especially when it comes to unemployment and young people not getting those opportunities? And if so, what is the problem systematically there? Why is it that we're finding young people who are frustrated, who have no purpose about their day?
So yes, people, I have to also say that the stats that came out from Stats SA on Tuesday, and if I remember correctly, said that anyone, there is still an 8% unemployment rate under in the population that do have a tertiary education of some form. So it's not that just because you have a tertiary education or some sort of vocational skill that you are definitely employed. It's just much lower. And how this connects all is we do need to look at, obviously, you got to learn to read to be able to read to learn, right? And then looking at, you mentioned the system, what are the skills that our young people are being equipped with? So one is that fintech, for example, is there are job opportunities within the financial and technology industries, but, do young people have the skills to, to really grab those opportunities? And how are the systems, and we're talking basic education through to secondary education through to, post-secondary education. How are all those linking together as one big system that really, elevates and helps young people to grab opportunities, or at least to have a chance at grabbing these opportunities?
Thank you so much, Mienke, for your time this afternoon. Mienke Marie Steytler is the Media and Communications Officer at Amnesty International South Africa.